In a shocking incident, 45 whales have died and 36 have been rescued after they washed up on a beach in Tuticorin in Tamil Nadu. Around 100 fin whales were washed up on the beach 600 km from Chennai in Tamil Nadu's Tuticorin district on Tuesday morning.
We have a hurricane in the Atlantic Ocean, Hurricane Alex. We haven't had a hurricane in the Atlantic in January since 1955. So it can happen, it's just very, very unusual. The storm started off near the Bahamas, went around Bermuda, into the eastern Atlantic. Now this is eastern Atlantic, no threat at all to the U.S., but there's a hurricane warning for the Azores.
Earlier this week, another weather milestone was reached when Polly became the earliest hurricane ever to form in the Central Pacific. A meteorologist at the Washington Post said El Nino and climate warming could play a role in both cyclones.
Thousands of dead fish have washed up on the shores of Rio's Guanabara Bay, not far from where events are being held at this year's Olympic Games. Other than floating rubbish, officials saw no visible abnormalities in the water. An independent report last year found there were dangerously high levels of viruses and bacteria in the water.
At least 2 are dead and several others are injured after 4 tornadoes hit Sarasota, Florida, and nearby areas Sunday morning.
Overnight, severe storms moved into central Florida, those twisters hitting in the dark of night. This morning, not much left of this home near Sarasota. Take a look at that. 90,000 other homes starting the day without power.
70 miles an hour wind gusts. Source, radar indicated. Impact, expect considerable tree damage.
Ripped off multiple homes, cars covered by leftover debris.
Sunday morning, severe storms in southwest Florida sparked a fascinating meteorological phenomena in the city of Naples. It's something called a meteo-tsunami, and the name really says it all. We're talking about a small tsunami that, instead of being caused by earthquakes, has to do with the weather.
Over 150 olive ridley sea turtles and a few dolphins washed ashore dead in Odisha. Vultures gathered around turtles and dolphins' carcasses on a beach near Pantha Nivas in Puri. Haunted by the sight, renowned sand artist Sudarshan Patnaik made sand sculptures of the turtles along with a message reading, "Give us space to live." Patnaik said the government should look into the matter and find out why turtles, dolphins and whales are dying so frequently in large numbers.
Biologists in Alaska have recently discovered thousands of dead seabirds, a sign the ecosystem is being troubled by abnormally warm ocean water. Heather Renner, a supervisory biologist at the Alaska Maritime National Wildlife Refuge, estimates that 100,000 common murres have died.
Scientists say there have been major common murre die-offs in Alaska before, but this one is different. They know the birds are starving to death. They just don't know why.
And we begin with the bitter cold that's been gripping Korea. Seoul shivered under its coldest day in 15 years on Sunday, with the mercury dropping to minus 18 degrees Celsius, and it actually felt more like minus 25 degrees Celsius.
Hong Kong also experienced its coldest day in nearly 60 years on Sunday as the temperature plunged to just 3 degrees Celsius.
And Hong Kong wasn't alone. Across Asia, we've seen bitter winter weather, nowhere hit harder than in Taiwan. State media there reported at least 85 people, most of them elderly, died from hypothermia or cardiac conditions likely caused by the frigid air. This weekend was a day of weather firsts for many in East Asia. Just ask these school kids gingerly stepping through snow on the Japanese island of Amami Oshuna. No one who lives on the island has ever seen it snow there before because it's the first time it's happened in 115 years.
Great to have you with us here on a Monday night. We hope you were inside and warm during the storm, but tonight it is still impossible to escape it. Even air travel still paralyzed coast to coast as 80 million Americans dig out here in the east. Records shattered from Baltimore to Philadelphia to New York.
Baltimore seeing its biggest snowstorm on record. Glengarry, West Virginia blasted with 42 inches. In nearby Martinsburg, 40 inches. In Newark, New Jersey, a record-breaking 28.1 inches fell. The heavy snow caving in roofs like this church in Chester County, Pennsylvania, this apartment complex in Virginia.
It may be that the biggest destruction was along the Jersey Shore, which was inundated at high tide.
More than a half a foot higher than when Superstorm Sandy hit in 2012.
Storm-related deaths have now reached at least 40.
Up north, a 7.1 earthquake hit south central Alaska early yesterday morning. No injuries were reported so far. The quake is already being considered one of the strongest earthquakes to hit the region in decades.
And natural gas explosions or fires that followed.
Some residents are reporting heavy damage to their homes, and one neighborhood had to be evacuated completely.
An earthquake measuring 6.3 on the Richter scale affected areas on the north coast of Morocco and the south of Spain. And by 8 a.m. a total of 9 aftershocks have been registered, the strongest of which measured 4.5 on the Richter scale.
Waves measuring as high as 5 meters or 16 feet battered the coast of Chile over the weekend as powerful El Niño storms wreaked havoc. The massive waves, which are reportedly the biggest in this region since 2003, damaged cars and toppled street lamps.
In Northern California tonight, evacuations amid a real-life cliffhanger. A neighborhood hanging on the edge as a powerful El Niño eats away the coastline and may take homes with it.
Extreme weather at this hour. Florida taking a beating. Multiple tornadoes reported in Broward County, including an EF1, winds up to 100 miles per hour. Dramatic images the moment of impact at this college. A tractor trailer flipping over. Cars piled on top of one another. People hiding beneath underpasses. A woman inside her car as it was thrown across the highway.
A massive sinkhole has forced the closure of a main highway in southern Oregon after a storm dumped nearly 1.5 inches of rain.
It was an incredible sight, but yet a desperately sad one. For the last 4 days, people have flocked to Skegness in their thousands to get a glimpse. The whales washed up here are believed to be from the same pod as this one, that later beached in Norfolk on Friday, and another in Wainfleet on Tuesday. But with so many being washed up on European shores in recent days, the focus now is protecting this incredible species for the future.
Victoria has been lashed by what is being described as a once-in-a-century storm, with the state's southwest receiving more than 1 month's rainfall in less than an hour.
To give you an idea of the intensity, Avalon was hit with 72 millimetres of water. Now that is double its monthly average.
More than 150 houses were flooded and dozens of cars submerged.
Now, a magnitude 7.0 earthquake has struck eastern Russia. The US Geological Survey says the quake hit the far eastern Kamchatka region around 5.5 hours ago. You can see the region it hit.
There was a bright spot in the sky that had a lot of people talking across the southern part of the state last night. That fireball went streaking across the sky.
Fireball the size of that one that we just saw in Madison probably happens every couple of weeks.
We're going to turn now to one of the most dangerous volcanoes in Central America, roaring back to life. Huge clouds of smoke and ash into the air. No sign of letting up.
A spectacular eruption from a volcano in Japan. You can see the flashes of lightning around the spewing lava and ash. This eruption is just 30 miles from a nuclear power plant.
A powerful winter storm from Florida to Maine. It already brought blizzard winds to South Dakota. There is also word coming in now, more than a half dozen confirmed reported tornadoes.
The storm was supposed to be weaker today, but try telling that to drivers in the rain who had to be rescued from rising waters outside Nashville and Atlanta.
We begin tonight with a developing story. A powerful 6.4 magnitude earthquake struck southern Taiwan.
The sheer force crumpled apartment blocks.
The death toll has climbed to 37, while more than 110 people are still missing.
Breaking news from the ABC 15 live desk right now. A body found in a sinkhole in the search for a missing farmer in Queen Creek.
And Steve, what authorities have told us in the last 15 minutes is that a witness actually saw that farmer's hands go up in the air as he fell down into that sinkhole. This was a farmer. His pickup truck was just a foot away from that sinkhole.
Well, scientists in India are investigating whether a man was killed by a meteorite. He was in the area where the object struck. Fragments of that are being analyzed to confirm whether it was an actual meteorite.
An unidentified object left a 4-foot-deep crater and smashed windows after falling near a cafeteria on the campus of Bharathidasan Engineering College, the school's principal said.
Such tragedies are really extremely rare because space rocks usually burn up in the Earth's atmosphere or they fall into an ocean. The last death believed to be caused by a meteorite happened in 1825.
All right, you see this? That's the strange sight that lit up our San Diego skies this morning and our phones in our newsroom as well.
This looks consistent with what we call a fireball.
Robert Quimby is an astronomy professor at SDSU and the director of the Mount Laguna Observatory. He's never seen anything like it in person and said it was unusually bright.
If we had to guess, you probably don't recall anything major happening on February 6th of this year. But according to a new report from NASA, if you lived in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, you would remember it. The NASA JPL Near-Earth Object Fireball page recorded a sizable event occurring at 1:55 p.m. At that time, the entry says an exceptionally bright meteor, known as a fireball or a bolide, zoomed into Earth's atmosphere and likely exploded over the South Atlantic Ocean. And the calculated total impact energy released from that explosion was reportedly about what you'd get if you detonated 13,000 tons of TNT.
Cliffs crumble into the sea, spreading clouds of dust in the hills after a 5.7 magnitude earthquake hit Christchurch in New Zealand. The epicentre of Sunday's quake in the country's South Island was 9 miles east of the city and just 9 miles deep, and has been deemed severe by New Zealand's seismological body GNS Science.
A 4.8 magnitude earthquake and several aftershocks rattle cities up and down California. The quake struck just after 3 this afternoon, followed by 2 smaller quakes. Then, a little more than 20 minutes later, another aftershock, and this one came in at 4.3.
Reports from law enforcement tonight is that they felt the quake, describing it as a big boom, then some rattling.
Strong winds and heavy rains are battering Fiji as Cyclone Winston hammers the South Pacific island nation.
Category 5 cyclone,
which left at least 29 dead. Authorities say the storm was the most powerful on record in the southern hemisphere. Whole villages were flattened by winds of over 300 kilometers an hour. Flimsy dwellings stood no chance.
We begin with the deadly tornadoes. Homes wiped out from Texas all the way up to Pennsylvania.
Take a look now at Waverly, Virginia, where a state of emergency was declared.
53 reported tornadoes in just the last 48 hours. They stretch from Texas up to Virginia, and at least
9 people were killed.
A rare tornado outbreak from Texas to Pennsylvania.
Parts of Amish country leveled.
Scientists blame El Nino, the warm ocean current, for the heavy rains that turned roads into rivers in Arequipa